In this problem, we are provided with the value of sine theta, which is positive 3/5, and theta is lying in the second quadrant. Then we have tangent of phi given by half, where phi is lying in the third quadrant. So using this two trigonometric value, we need to find out the value of 8 tangent of theta minus square root of 5 times secant of phi. So let's begin. So here we are given the value of sine theta. So using sine theta equals to 3/5, we need to find out the value of tangent theta. So let's do that. We first will begin by finding out the value of cosine theta. Now, how to find out the value of cosine theta? We're going to use a standard identity, a standard trig identity. We know that cosine squared theta plus sine squared theta, that has a standard value equals to 1. So solving this equation, we can find out the value of cosine theta. So cosine theta is simply going to be equals to plus or minus square root of 1 minus sine theta whole square. So we'll plug in the value of sine theta with 3/5. So let's do that. We have plus or minus square root of 1 minus. So 3/5 whole squared will be 9/25. So now solving 1 minus 9/25. So that's 16/25. Taking the square root gives us plus or minus 4/5. So this is the value of cosine theta. Now here we are obtaining two values of cosine theta. So one is positive 4/5 and other is going to be negative 4/5. But we have to consider only one value. So for this, let's try to understand with the help of a quadrant system. So we have a Cartesian plane. We are going to divide this Cartesian plane into 4 equal parts. That will give us 4 quadrants. So we have first, second, third, and fourth quadrant. The quadrant is chosen in such a way that the first quadrant, the angle lies between 0 and pi/2 radians. The second quadrant is to lie between pi/2 and pi radians. Then in the third quadrant, we have the angle lying between pi and 3 pi/2. And then finally in the fourth quadrant, our angle is going to be between 3 pi/2 radians and 2 pi radians. So it could be either the value of theta or it could be the value of phi. Now there's a certain mnemonic that we need to remember. So we have A, S, T, C. So A, S, T, C means in the first quadrant, all trigonometric functions are going to be positive. So doesn't matter we are choosing sine, cosine, tangent, cotangent, secant, cosecant, all of them are going to be positive in the first quadrant. In the second quadrant, we have S. So S means it's a short for sine theta. And if you're considering sine theta, it's a reciprocal, which is the cosecant function. We'll also consider that. So it's cosecant function. So both of them are going to be positive in the second quadrant. And the remaining 4 trigonometric functions are going to be negative. Coming to the third quadrant, we have T. So T represents the tangent function, and we'll consider its reciprocal, which is the cotangent function. So these two trig functions are going to be positive, rest are going to be negative. And finally in the fourth quadrant, we have C. C represents the cosine function and its reciprocal, which is the secant function. So these two trig functions are going to be positive and the rest are going to be negative. Now clearly as mentioned here, our theta is lying in the second quadrant. So in the second quadrant, only the sine and the cosecant function are positive. The rest are negative. So that means we'll have to consider the negative value for cosine theta. So we'll consider negative 4/4. Now that we have the value of cosine as well, we can use it to find out the value of tangent theta. So we need to find out the value of tangent theta. So tangent of theta will be equals to the ratio sine theta over cosine theta. So we'll consider sine theta, which is 3/5. And we'll divide it with the value of cosine theta, which is negative 4/5. So we'll obtain the value of tangent theta. So that's negative 3/4. So this is the value of tangent theta. So we will label this as number 1. We'll come back to it in a moment. But before that, we'll have to find out the value of secant phi. We are provided with the value of tangent of phi equals to half. Using this, we'll find out the value of secant of phi. So we have tangent of phi with a value of 1/2. Now, we are going to use our identity. So we know another trig identity, which is secant squared phi. That's given by 1 plus tangent squared phi. So secant phi. So let's plug in the value of tangent phi here. So we have 1 plus half whole square, which will be equals to 1 plus 1/4. So 1 added to 1/4, that's equals to 5/4. So that's the value of secant squared phi. So we'll take the square root on both sides, which is going to give us secant of phi equals to plus or minus we have square root of 5 divided by 2. Now we have two values of secant of 5. One is positive square root of 5 over 2. The other one is negative square root of 5 over 2. But we'll have to consider only one value. So is it a positive value or a negative value? For this, we go to our Cartesian plane. So clearly it's mentioned here that phi, the angle phi, that lies in the third quadrant. Now in the third quadrant, if we look at our diagram here, the third quadrant, only the tangent and the cotangent functions are positive. That means the secant function is going to be, secant function is going to be negative square root of 5 divided by 2. We're going to label this as equation number 2. So now that we have the value of secant phi as well as tangent theta, we can use it to obtain the value of 8 tangent theta minus square root of 5 times secant of 5. So let's obtain this value. So 8 tangent of theta is going to become 8 multiplied to negative 3 over 4 minus, so we have square root of 5. This will get multiplied to secant of 5, which is negative square root of 5 over 2. This is going to be equals to, so 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. So we have negative 24 over 4 plus square root of 5 times square root of 5 will be positive 5 over 2. Which will be equals to, so we have negative 24 over 4 plus, we'll multiply both numerator and the denominator 5 over 2 with 2. That gives us 5 times 2, that's 10, and 2 plus times 2 is 4. This is done so that we can now add the two fractions. So we're going to get negative 14 over 4 or simply negative 7 over 2. So this is going to be the value of 8 tangent of theta minus square root of 5 times secant of 5.